Stand over a bed you just tilled and watch it turn to powder in your hands, no matter how much sweat you poured into it. That aching back, that dead gray dirt, none of it was ever your fault. Somewhere along the way, modern gardening advice convinced us that good soil has to be dug up every single year, and it pushed us away from what the Amish never stopped doing. They haven't turned their garden soil in decades, and it only gets richer. The tilling is not what builds your soil. The tilling is what wears it out. Every spring you break your back tilling, and that very tilling is what keeps your dirt gray and lifeless. And then you blame yourself when nothing holds together. It was never you. It was the shovel. I want to walk you through the whole thing today, because once you understand why the tilling betrays you, the fix is almost embarrassingly simple. You already have most of what you need lying around your yard right now. It costs nothing. And you can start this season, no matter where you live or what your soil looks like today. So let me tell you what is going on under your feet when you turn that soil over. Healthy soil is not a bag of dirt. It is a living thing closer to a sponge than a pile of sand. When you leave it alone, it builds itself into a honeycomb full of tiny channels and air pockets. Earthworms dig those channels as they travel up and down, and their tunnels let water soak deep in instead of running off the top. Their droppings, what gardeners call castings, glue the soil into little crumbs that hold both air and moisture at the same time. And running through all of it are fine white threads of fungus, stretching like a net, connecting your plant roots to water and food far beyond where the roots could ever reach on their own. Think of that whole system as the garden's underground digestive stomach. It takes fallen leaves and dead roots at the surface and slowly turns them into the dark, crumbly richness every gardener dreams about. Worms, microbes, and fungus all working the night shift, and none of them sending you a bill. Now picture what a rototiller does to that. In a matter of seconds, it shreds every worm channel, snaps every fungal thread, and collapses every air pocket you spent a whole season building. Gardeners and researchers who study this closely have found that a single pass of the tiller can wipe out a large share of that fungal network, and it can take years to rebuild. So you fire up the machine, believing you are loosening your soil. What you are doing is demolishing the very structure that made it loose in the first place. It feels fluffy for about 2 weeks, and then the first hard rain packs it right back down into a crust, because you knocked out all the living architecture that was holding it open. And it gets worse, because tilling does not just destroy what is good. It wakes up what is bad. Your soil is full of weed seeds that have been sitting in the dark for years, sometimes decades, just waiting. Most of them cannot sprout without a flash of sunlight. Every time you turn the soil over, you drag thousands of those buried seeds up to the surface and hand them exactly the light they were waiting for. That is why the freshly tilled bed that looked so clean and brown in April is a jungle of weeds by June. You did not remove the weeds. You planted them with your own 2 hands, and then spent the rest of the summer on your knees pulling them back out. There is one more cost, and it is the hidden one that nobody warns you about. All that dark richness in good soil, the stuff that holds water and slowly feeds your plants, is organic matter that took years to build up. When you churn a blast of air through the soil by tilling, you make that organic matter burn away faster, the same way blowing on a campfire makes it flare and eat through the wood quicker. So every single year you till, you are spending down your soil savings account. Then you drive to the garden center and buy bags of compost to put back exactly what you just destroyed. The Amish never made that trade, and neither did most gardeners 100 years ago, back before anyone was selling machines to do it. So if the digging is the problem, what on earth is the answer? You let the living things do the digging for you. This is the whole secret, and it is why no-dig gardeners can keep the same beds going for 40 years and watch them get better every single season instead of worse. The worms are tillers that never stop working and never ask for a paycheck. They travel up and down through the soil, all day and all night, pulling organic matter down from the surface and leaving those rich castings behind, loosening and feeding the ground at the very same time. The fungus spreads its net a little wider every month it goes undisturbed, and a wider net means your plants can reach more water and more nutrients without you lifting a finger. The whole underground crew does the exact work you were doing by hand, except they do it deeper, more gently, and completely for free, as long as you stop tearing their home apart twice a year. Your only job in this whole arrangement is to feed them. And you feed soil life the same way you feed a fire, from the top down, not by mixing it all in. In nature, nobody digs the leaves into the forest floor. The leaves fall, They lie on the surface, and the worms and microbes come up to eat them and carry them down where they are needed. All you are doing with the no-dig method is copying what the forest has been doing on its own for millions of years, in a spot you can reach with a garden fork. Let me give you a picture of what that looks like in a real backyard. Imagine a patch of hard, weedy clay along a fence, the kind of ground where nothing grows well and the shovel bounces off in July. Instead of renting a tiller and fighting it, you lay cardboard over the whole thing in the fall, pile on leaves and grass clippings and a little aged manure, and cap it with mulch. You do not touch it again. By the next spring, you slide your hand into that same spot, and it is dark, soft, and full of worms, and you plant tomatoes straight into it. That is not a fairy tale. That is just what happens when you stop interrupting the ground and let it heal. So here is how you actually do it, step by step, and you can knock the whole thing out over a single weekend. First, you stop digging. That is not a small thing, so let it land for a second. Whatever weeds or grass are growing on your chosen spot, you are not going to pull them, and you are not going to turn them under. You are going to smother them right where they stand and let them rot in place, feeding the soil as they go. Second, you lay down cardboard. Plain brown cardboard, flattened out, laid right over the grass and weeds, with the pieces overlapping by several inches so no light sneaks through the gaps. This is the layer that kills what is underneath, by blocking every last bit of sunlight. Within a few weeks, the grass and weeds below give up, die back, and the earthworms move in to eat the softening cardboard like it is a buffet. Now, one important safety note here, because this part genuinely matters. Pull off every bit of packing tape, every staple, and every plastic shipping label first. Skip the glossy printed boxes, the ones with a shiny coating, and anything covered in heavy colored ink. You want plain brown, boring cardboard, the kind a moving box is made of. Give it a good soaking with the hose once it is down, both to hold it in place and to jumpstart the rotting. That is it. Third, you build your layers on top of the cardboard, and this is where your free materials do all the work. Start with a couple of inches of compost if you have it. Then a thick blanket of fallen leaves, which half the country rakes up and drags to the curb every autumn while their neighbors do the exact same thing. Aged manure if you can get it, and plenty of small farms and stables will hand it to you for nothing just to have it hauled off their property. Grass clippings, spent garden plants, coffee grounds, kitchen scraps tucked down in the middle. You are building a lasagna of dead organic matter, and every layer is another meal for the soil life waking up below. Aim for a good 4 to 6 inches deep altogether. It will shrink down a lot as it breaks apart, so if anything, err on the side of piling it higher. If you are finding this useful, take a second to subscribe. This channel is all about building a better garden for less money, and there is a lot more of this kind of thing coming. Fourth, you top the whole thing off with a layer of mulch. Straw, shredded leaves, wood chips, pine needles, whatever you have on hand. This top blanket holds moisture in during the heat, keeps the sun off the soil so it stays cool and damp, and slowly feeds the layers underneath as it breaks down. It also means far fewer weeds because the seeds buried down below never get the light they need, and any fresh seeds that blow in on the wind land on mulch instead of on bare, welcoming dirt. Now I want to be honest with you here, because this audience has heard enough tall tales. This is not a magic no weeds forever promise. You will still pull a few. But it is a small fraction of what you used to fight, and the ones that do sprout slide right out of that loose top layer, with 2 fingers instead of a full-body tug. Fifth, you plant straight into the top. And you do not wait years for this, which is the part people never believe until they try it. For seedlings and transplants, you just part the top layer with your hands, set the plant into the compost, and firm it in. For seeds, you pull back the mulch and sow right into the compost layer. The roots grow down, hit the softening cardboard, punch right through it as it rots away, and reach into the living soil below that the worms have already been working on for weeks. Your plants are eating from day one. There is no dead year, no waiting for the bed to become ready. It is ready the moment you finish building it. Now, when should you do all this? The honest answer is you can start anytime the ground is not frozen solid. Spring works fine. Summer works if you keep it watered while everything settles. But if you have the choice, autumn is the sweetest time of all to build a no-dig bed. You lay it down over the fall, and then all through the cold months, the worms, the rain, and the freeze and thaw of winter are breaking everything down for you while you sit warm inside with a cup of coffee. By the time spring arrives, that bed is dark, soft, and ready to plant, and you did all the building back when the garden was winding down and you had nothing else going on anyway. It is the closest thing to free labor a gardener ever gets. I will add one honest note here, because I am not going to stand here and promise you the same thing works exactly the same everywhere. If you garden in heavy clay, your first year of no-dig might drain a little slowly until the worms punch enough channels through it, so give it a full season before you judge. If you are in a hot, dry climate, that mulch layer stops being optional and becomes the thing that saves your whole bed, so lay it on thick. And if you have a serious runner-type weed like bindweed or Bermuda grass already established, you may need a double layer of cardboard and a bit of patience. Watch your own ground, in your own zone, and adjust as you go. The method bends to your conditions, but the underlying principle holds true everywhere there is soil. Let me pull back for a minute, because I know the word Amish gets thrown around a lot with a wink these days, and I want to be square with you about it. This is not some forbidden secret they are hiding out in a barn. There is nothing banned or mystical about it. It is old, patient common sense that a big part of the world simply never abandoned in the first place. The Amish keep their soil rich, year after year, because they never bought into the modern idea that you have to purchase your fertility in a plastic bag and rebuild it from scratch every spring. Old world growers across many cultures worked the very same way long before any of us were born, feeding the top of the soil and trusting the ground below to take care of the rest. And the modern science has caught right up to that old tradition. Charles Dowding, the British grower who has run careful side-by-side no-dig trials on his own market garden for years, has recorded his no-dig beds outproducing his dug beds season after season in matched comparison plots. According to his long-running trial, the no-dig side has come out ahead year after year, and it does it while using less water because that living, spongy soil holds onto rain instead of shedding it off the top. Less digging, less weeding, less buying, and more food off the same square footage. That is not folklore and it is not wishful thinking. That is simply what happens when you stop fighting the ground and start feeding it. Think for a second about what that gives you. A bed you never have to till again for as long as you garden it. Soil that gets a little richer every single year instead of a little poorer. A pile of leaves your neighbor bagged up and left on the curb, turned into next year's harvest of beans and tomatoes. You are no longer on the hook to the garden center for another load of bagged soil every April, and no longer on the hook to your own aching back either. You built something that cost nothing and only improves, and the best part is it keeps improving while you are asleep in your bed. So here is the one idea I want you to carry out of all of this, the thread that ties every bit of it together. You do not build good soil by tearing it apart. You build it by feeding what is already alive down there, and then getting out of its way so it can do its work. The worms and the fungus and the microbes have been doing this exact job for millions of years, long before anyone invented a tiller, and they will do it in your own backyard the moment you stop interrupting them. Go stand over one of your beds this week. Instead of reaching for the tiller like you always have, lay down some cardboard and pile the fallen leaves on top of it. Then walk away and let the ground go to work on its own schedule. Come back in a few months and push your hand down into soil that is dark and cool and crumbling with life. Soil you never turned over even once. That quiet feeling of dirt that finally holds together soft in your palm is the whole reward, and it is one you get to keep every year from here on out. If you want more ways to grow more and spend a whole lot less doing it, there are plenty of videos right here on the channel waiting for you.